Knowles on the news. Susan Knowles.
Well, here we are again, another week, and this week again is crazier than the last week. I mean, I don't know if you're feeling it, but the more I hear coming out of this government, the crazier everything seems to get. And what am I talking about exactly? Well, I'm talking about the shooting in Orlando and the fact that the Attorney General Lynch came out and said, hey, we're not going to give you everything that this guy said. We're just going to redact the transcript because we don't want you to hear him saying, you know, that I praise Allah, I bow down to Allah, whatever he was saying, you know, I'm all for ISIS, I'm here to kill people. We don't want you to hear that because, you know, that's not good stuff. We don't want people hearing that. We just want you to hear the stuff where he's saying, you know, maybe all glory to God or something that's just not offensive to Muslims, because that's our number one priority. We don't want to offend the Muslims anywhere, especially those Muslims that may be in the Middle East and perhaps are actually doing, you know, maybe they work for ISIS. We don't want to offend those people. Come on now. So we're just not going to give you all the information. You know, American people, you're not that smart, right? So we can't allow you to kind of think for yourselves. I mean, the days of critical thinking and analyzing, you can't handle that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to give you what we want you to have. And you, Mr. and Miss America, you need to be satisfied with that because, you see, we're the government, and we're here to help, and we're here to tell you what you need to know, okay? Yeah, well, that didn't last too long because, see, the American people aren't stupid. The American people, here's what they are. The American people are beyond fed up. We're sick and tired of having the government tell us what we should do, what we should think, how we should think, when we should think. We're done with that. And I can't say that we're 100% on board. I mean, there are still people out there who believe that everything the government tells them is the absolute truth, that you can depend upon the government, that you should never question the government. But we're getting there. And people were just so fed up. And for whatever reason this time, you know, Congress, the GOP, they actually listened to us. I always go back to the fact that, well, it's probably because it's an election year. So we're going to go ahead and let these people think that we really care about what they think. But anyway, the GOP came out and said, you know, you need to release everything. You need to tell us exactly what was said. We don't want this redacted information. We're not children. We want to see it all. And so with pressure, listen to this, GOP, with pressure, it was released. The entire document was released. Now, the GOP could take a lesson on this, you see, because when they apply any amount of pressure, usually the administration backs down eventually. It depends on what it is, of course, but typically they back down. Because after all, we do right now have the majority of the House and Senate. I know that comes as a shock to many people, especially in Congress on the GOP side. Hey, you know, right now you have the power. You've never embraced that power or run with it, but you have it. And you should use it a little bit more often. Now, didn't that feel good when you did that? And I will have to say, again, I don't know, maybe the GOP finally found what they're looking for in order to do their jobs. But when there was a big push, as you know, after the Orlando shootings, a big push to get rid of the assault weapons. And, you know, Dianne Feinstein, I've been trying to do this for 20 years. Let me roll myself out here and try one more time to get rid of all assault weapons. You know, because it's the assault weapons who get up, they load themselves with the bullets, and then they march themselves down to wherever they want to go, and they begin killing people. Those guns, if we could just get rid of those guns who are doing the killing, then we'd be fine. It's not the criminals who take the guns and do with it what they want. No. We can't blame people for the actions of a gun. We have to blame the gun itself. And the bullets are an accessory, okay? They're an accessory to the crime. We can't forget that. But no, we can't make anybody have any personal responsibility, nor can we, with common sense and logic, deduce that if you ban assault weapons, I know this is going to come as a surprise, but criminals can get a hold of any weapon that they want to, even if it's banned. Shocking news, I know. And they came out, this is the Democrats, they came out with their little hashtag enough signs, because they were ready for war. And not to say they won't come rolling back around, or that the president won't have some type of executive order, but they come out with hashtag enough. That's what I want to say with the Dems, with all of your progressive agendas. Hashtag enough, okay? Just stop. But the Senate basically stopped the vote, and they didn't get to do what they wanted to. Now, again, like I said, it wouldn't surprise me that Obama comes back around and tries to do something else. But in the meantime, the sale of AR-15s just went through the roof. And a lot of gay people, supposedly, are out there buying assault rifles, an AR-15, and that's really good. They're starting to learn how to protect themselves, just like everybody else ought to be doing. And there were people, I read something where I believe it was one of the moms or one of the dads one of the victims in the Orlando shooting said, "I wish my son had had a gun to be able to protect himself on the night of the shooting. Maybe he'd still be alive." I think it's high time, and we all know this, people who are, an intelligence level of an IQ of 1 know that you have to be able to protect yourself. That it's not the gun that does the killing, it's the people. And, I've heard other people talk about this, and this is absolutely true. There is a root cause of all of this that is causing us to turn to guns for solutions. And, there's so many branches off of that root that it would be hard to, talk about it today, because there's just so much of it. One is obvious. One, there's terrorism, okay, so that's obvious. Two, you've got people who never accept personal responsibility. And three, you've got people who they don't know how to communicate. And their only way of communicating is inappropriately through this type of anger that they would go out and kill somebody. And that includes people who get fired and they get upset and they go back and they kill people in their employment. Instead of being able to talk it through or to handle their anger appropriately, these are the steps that they take. And we as a society, we kind of glorify violence in a lot of respects. And yes, people, you in Hollywood, you are a contributor to that. I know you just do it for the money, but newsflash, you contribute to that. And then you have the audacity to say, oh, well, I don't think people should be allowed to have guns. I think that we should ban guns or certain guns, while you sit there armed to the teeth with your bodyguards. I know you're not personally armed, but see, it's called cheating when you say, I don't want you to have a weapon, but I have bodyguards over here. It's like having your own personal guns kind of walk with you all the time. So people are tired of that as well. And I think, again, part of the problem is we look to our leaders, and instead of looking to people that we should look to lead us, like our parents or people who we absolutely trust. and there are very few people anymore that I think that you can trust, even pastors anymore. A lot of them you cannot trust. They're being led astray, all right? But instead of looking at people that we know that we can trust and they have they've basically proven themselves, we turn to people like Hollywood, rappers, all these other people. I can't think of other people, just singers in general. And when we say, oh my gosh, these are the people that we should put our faith and hope in. And they look so good, their lives just look so good when you look at them. I mean, they have these, oh wow, that they live in mansions and they drive all these nice cars and they're very expensive and they have all the men and women around them all the time that they want and everybody just bows down to them. Isn't this great? And then what you don't realize is they are just people like you and me. But they are built to look like this image, whatever the image is that they want them to look like. And when it boils right down to it, they put on their shoes the same way you and I do every single day. And they're no better. They have all of the problems that every other human has. And it could be that they're magnified by the fact that they do have so much money. And so we allow our children to sit and just glorify these people instead of focusing them in the right places and whatever your faith is, and mine it happens to be in God. Instead of telling people, this is who you should honor, this is who you should look to model your life after, we allow people to turn to Hollywood, and somehow we have to rein this all back in, because you can see from our government and where they are. You can see from what they're trying to do and not protect the people of the United States and not care about what the people of the United States want. You can see how far off track that we have come. And we have to start changing that. And I had a guest on recently. We had this great conversation. I don't know if you heard my Monday night show this week. Robin O'Bannon is her name, and we had just this frank conversation about common sense about where things are going in the United States and how far off base we are. And if you didn't hear that show, go back and listen to it. It was the June 20th show on Spreaker.com, and we need to have more of these conversations with each other. We need to figure out what we need to do. And now she happened to have been in the lower level political organizations. She tried to run, or she did run for the Arizona committeeman. And I don't know Arizona's makeup and what level that is, but let's just say it's like a city council type position or something of that effect. But we were talking about how you need to root those people out in the very beginning. You can't allow them to take one step after the other when you know that their heart is not in it because they want to serve people and do the right thing. Their heart is in it because they want the accolades, they want the money, they want the power. And sure, they would find it some other way, but they don't have to be the people that represent us. And we don't have to allow that to continue to happen. But we can't look at, Congress and go, wow, we have a big problem. We need to get those people out. Yeah, we do need to get those people out, but they should never have gotten there in the first place. And we have a lot of problems right now in Congress. Whether you like Donald Trump or not, what is happening is that we have a GOP who says, I'm not going to support him. Well, they didn't support Ted Cruz because the establishment hates Ted Cruz because he's not an establishment guy. And now Donald Trump had the support of the establishment, and now he doesn't. And now the establishment is saying, I'm not going to raise money for him, according to what I read about Paul Ryan. And so where does that leave the GOP? Well, it kind of leaves the GOP on the outside. I mean, it's kind of what we've been talking about in a lot of respects. A lot of people think the GOP is over. And the GOP has become so similar to the Democrats, it's hard to tell where one ends and the other begins. And so, there are people who say, well, Donald Trump is just doing this because he just wants the publicity and he wants a Trump TV. That could all be true. I don't know. Maybe he never thought this would go this far, but he's continuing on. And then we have the GOP, who can't even support their own candidate. You've got a problem there. They more support the Obama administration than they do their own candidate. So we have major issues. And, as we come down to the wire, then what does that mean for the convention in July? More chaos, more division, and who knows where this all ends. Maybe it ends with a Hillary president. And I can't even imagine what that is going to be like. I mean, you talk about something that would make your head spin. That certainly does that. So we need to revamp the entire Republican Party in some way. Get rid of it, take it down to the ground, build it back up, whatever we need to do. This isn't working. It hasn't worked for a long period of time. And we need to have this grassroots effort where people are talking to each other about these issues and coming up together with solutions. And instead of, being ripped apart, instead of allowing this president to come up with every reason why races, can't get along with each other, and helping that forward, progressing that agenda so we don't talk even outside of our own race, we need to kind of, figure out we're being played, and we need to stop being played and start doing what we need to do to get our lives back in order in this country. I don't know if we can get this country back in order. I really don't know. I mean, it's been going so downhill so fast that I'm just not sure. But we can't do it if we do absolutely nothing. We certainly can't do it if we have a Hillary president. I mean, you talk about another possibly 8 years, and this country has practically been destroyed. It certainly has been transformed, let's put it that way. And another 8 years of somebody who is obviously, a Margaret Sanger supporter, Marxist perhaps, communist, I don't know. It depends on where she needs to go and what, which way she needs to sway this week in order to convince you that she's on your side. You remember she once was against same-sex marriage, and then all of a sudden she became for it because that's where the tide went. So wherever the tide goes, that's where Hillary is going to go. So, again, I don't know what the solution is, but when we're not talking to each other, I know one thing, we will never have a solution. And people are still divided even over Donald Trump. And again, nobody likes to talk about this or admit this, but in the very beginning, Trump was not someone who was bringing people together. And you can't have that. You can't have that of a party. You can't have that of a nation. You have to bring people together. And I don't know if it's too late for him to bring people together or not. He's now saying, I don't need the establishment GOP. Well, I don't know. Ted Cruz didn't need the establishment GOP, and he's no longer in the race. You're saying now, if that's true, you don't need the establishment GOP, then I don't know who's left. I mean, the Tea Party, some of them have gone. They don't like Donald Trump. Some of them are still here. And the establishment can go against. I mean, those people can walk right in the booth tomorrow and pull the lever. I know we don't do that anymore, but they can vote for Hillary, and who's going to know? And most likely, they probably will, honestly. They just do whatever they want. It is what benefits them, not what benefits America. And I don't know what, if anything, Hillary has promised the Republican Congress. I don't know. I mean, again, these people are so in bed with each other that nothing, absolutely nothing, would surprise me anymore. But we, the people, are the ones that are left. We are the ones that are going to have to solve these issues. It is not going to be Congress. It is not going to be a president. We can't put our hope and faith in one man. We can't do it. Now, how we do this, again, it first begins by at least talking to one another and not being so divided that we can't even have the conversation. You need to hear the good, the bad, the ugly about your candidate and about what's going on, with our party. And we need to be able to have that conversation. And so, let's see, what else is new? Well, Marco Rubio is running. Did anybody see that coming? He's going to run for re-election in his district. And I guess he's saying that he's doing this because of what happened in Orlando. It made him sort of change his mind. Not sure if how accurate that is, but we'll run with it. There were speculations that he really didn't have a job afterwards, but I'm sure he would have found one in a very lucrative position. There was also speculation that Donald Trump might ask him to run for VP, but obviously that was not the case. And I can't imagine that he would have after belittling him like he did during the the campaign. But then again, he did that with Ben Carson, and Ben Carson is on his campaign. So, they all make strange bedfellows, and you never know what's going to happen. But anyway, so I don't know. I guess people in Florida will be very happy about that because they seem to really like him. And I think, there's some question about whether he's ever there to vote and what he really gets accomplished. I know sometimes that in the past, at least, he has done some work in helping veterans. So perhaps, when he comes back, that he can do more good in that respect. I'm not sure what he feels that he can do any differently after the Orlando shooting. Perhaps to save the Second Amendment from being stripped away from us. Maybe that's why he's coming back. And I think, for the most part, he seems to be a decent person, but he is a politician. Don't trust him any more than I trust any of the rest of them all that much. But we'll see what happens there. I do know that Dan Bongino is running for the Senate, and I think it's the 19th district in Florida that he's running for, and a seat there that's being vacated, or I don't know who was there. I really don't know, but because I don't live in Florida, I don't follow it that much. But I don't know if you know who Dan Bongino is, and kind of wanted to talk about him a little bit today and what I know about him. Now, he was on my show. We talked for about a half an hour on my show at one point, and I've always liked him. And I like him because of the fact, he was a Secret Service agent under George Bush initially, I believe, and then under Obama, God help him. And he has absolutely nothing good to say about Obama. This is a man who was on the inside, and who would know more than anybody else, what was going on and how bad it was in the White House when he was protecting Obama. And he has a book out, and I wish I had gotten the title before I started talking, but I don't remember the book. But if you look it up, I'm sure you can find the most recent book for Dan Bongino. But in watching him and reading his book and kind of listening to him and all that, I think he is a really decent and honest human being. And it's something that has been missing from our political offices. We don't see people like that. We don't see down-to-earth people who go in with the intent of doing the right thing. And Dan seems to be the type of guy, from all I can see and read and understand, he really is that decent guy who just wants to go to Washington and help weed out the corruptness that's going on and bring it back around to some semblance of what we used to know in our country. And I know that he ran for an office in Maryland before. He almost got it, but he didn't. And I would say that, it's pretty decent run in the fact that a lot of people don't know who he is, and he got that close to winning. And I do hope. Now, I know this election coming up is in August, and he's waited till really almost like the last possible minute. But I'm hoping that if, for example, you go out and you learn about him and you're comfortable with him and you think that he is a good candidate, that you just spread the word, spread the word on social media and get it out there to let people know, there are decent people left in this world who want to go to Washington not to fill their own pockets or benefit themselves, but to actually do good. And I think he is an example, again, from everything that I've seen and I've listened to him, that he's a very good example of that type of person that we need in Washington, D.C. And I can tell you one thing, he is absolutely against Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. He's come out so many times against Bernie Sanders, it's not even funny. And if you listen to him on Facebook, he's on Facebook mentions and whatever he comes on, and it's so good. I mean, he is such a straight talker. He doesn't mince words. He just gives it to you like it is. And again, I really like that. I haven't heard anybody ever question his integrity. And I think, once again, that's something that is so needed for us. We need somebody that we can look at and say, okay, I trust what you say, because he didn't grow up a politician. He's not from a family that things were handed to him on a silver platter. He actually went out and he did work and he became a Secret Service agent and he did a great job as that Secret Service agent. And, I'm sure that he looks at it now and sees what's happened to the Secret Service under the Obama administration. And I've never asked him, but I can't imagine that he's too happy with who they are and what they've become. I mean, it's pretty sad when you have people that can't do their jobs, when people are jumping over the fence and coming inside the White House. Hey, I'm here. Oh, my gosh. But it didn't happen under Dan's watch. But anyway, if you feel like he's somebody that you can support and get the news out about him and get the information going to people, please do. Again, our country is in such desperate need of someone who appears to be reliable, who appears to be that he's not going to go to Washington, D.C. and overnight change. Now, and I know some of you may disagree with me, but I was so disappointed in Mia Love. I had such high hopes for her that she was going to go to D.C. and that she was actually going to make a difference and that she wouldn't just become like the rest of them. And, when I saw her doing things like joining the Black Caucus, I thought, okay, now why are you doing that? These people are like establishment people who would not really be in our best interests that I can see. And her way of reasoning, I guess at the time, was I'm going to join the Black Caucus and change it from the inside out. She fell off the radar for most people after that because she started to become just like the people that she said she wasn't going to be. And we've seen so many people that go to Washington, and that happens. Jeff Flake, for one, the name fits him perfectly. I think Jeff Flake fooled a lot of people, said that he was going to go to Washington, to do a great job, change it, be there for the American people, blah, blah, blah. And, he fell right in with the establishment. And I guess it's probably just very difficult every day. You're wined and dined and lulled into believing that, hey, if you just become one of us, things are going to work out great for you. We're going to give you everything that you want for your state. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. Play along, get along, right? And each and every time, we all know that ends in disaster. And you take people who, John Boehner, for example, I did some research on him a while back. And, he was a guy that started out kind of like a blue-collar guy, just a everyday, run-of-the-mill guy like everybody else, average guy. And at some point in his early life, he did end up I believe, in jail. And it obviously wasn't a horrendous crime, or he wouldn't have been, well, maybe, but anyway, he wouldn't have been able to run for Congress. And it was something that happened early on. I don't remember what it was. It was rather insignificant. But most of his life, it seemed like he really wanted to go to D.C. to make a difference. And he worked really hard for the American people to do that. And then there came a point in my research, when I saw that he got in with I think it was the tobacco lobby. And things started to change. You know, who he was as an individual really started to change. And you know where it ended. I mean, we got to the point where he was, to me it looked like, anyway, a broken man who would do anything that he needed to do in order to benefit himself. Big money always causes big problems for people. They lose their souls a lot of times. And I think very difficult time. And you look at people like Nancy Pelosi. I mean, if you look at the before and after pictures, something has changed with that woman. And Harry Reid, too. It's like they came in one person and they ended up just selling out and have become so different and maybe so against their original principles. They don't even look the same. And that, I mean, pictures don't lie. It's so scary. And you know, you have to wonder, is this what people look like when they sell out, when they sell their souls and do things that they never intended to really do in the very beginning, or at least not this far? I mean, you have to, you know, you think back about, like with Nancy, you have to read it first to know what's in it, and talking about Obamacare. You know, she knew when she said it was a lie. And yet she was so willing to go along with the lie. And so many of our politicians today seem so willing to go along with the lie and not do what's in our benefit. I mean, look at Paul Ryan. If this is true, he's saying basically that he would bring a lawsuit against Trump if he tried to stop Muslims from coming here to the United States if he became president. Well, you know, we have a vetting problem. Everybody knows that. The State Department has even said that. And yet, we continue to bring those people here from other countries, Muslim or not, from other countries that we haven't vetted. And the president is, you know, once again, they're lying to us. They're bringing in people that they're not even telling us about. And they're doing it, in the night, because they learned before, when they tried to bring those people from Central America, they learned that the American people stood up to the buses and said, "Not here, not my state, not my city." And they didn't want to have that happen again. So what do? They just don't tell anybody. They just don't report the figures. They just bring people in and they just don't say anything. And, you know, I don't know when this country became a country where we had to accept everybody into this country, or we were considered, you know, horrible people. We brought people in before. We've brought people in from Vietnam. We've brought people in from, you know, other places, other countries. But we've never had the difficulties that we're having today. You know, when you bring in people with an ideology is the absolute opposite of what ours is, and they have, you know, a book that they follow that says, you know, kill all infidels, you know, why? Nobody in their right minds would do that. Other countries won't accept people like that, but we here are expected to. And if we don't, we have people like Paul Ryan who says, well, you know, I'll just bring a lawsuit if you don't allow them in. I don't know why our focus, well, I do know, but what I'm saying is I don't know why our focus is so much on bringing in people into this country when we have other problems and issues that we could focus on. But no, we want to bring in people who are so unlike us and don't want to assimilate with us. So I'll leave it to you to read between those lines to figure out why that would happen. There's only a very few reasons that that would happen. And they're not good. None of them. And no one in America wants to, to not allow people in here who want to be here and who want to assimilate into the American culture, whatever that is. I mean, I don't think we even have a culture very much anymore, but what's left of it. Of course, this country is built on immigrants, but it's also built on legal immigrants. And we're going to have a multitude of problems here. We're already having the problems. And also who
now we're being told that the people that are coming in have TB. And you know they have other diseases that we haven't had in centuries or we've never had. You know they have those diseases because they're from other countries, third world countries and all that. And of course they have that. And we're not prepared. We are not prepared. We can't even really, with our insurance that we've totally messed up with Obamacare. We can't even take care of the people that we have, and yet we're bringing people in droves. So it's done to overwhelm the system. There's no other way to look at it. There's no other logical explanation than to overwhelm the system and break down America. And so it's no longer America. To break America down to its knees. I mean, it's obvious. It's obvious to a number of people that's exactly why it's done. And again, unfortunately, we sit back a lot of times and we don't know what's going on and we don't know how to stop it. And that's exactly where they want us to be. And that is exactly why they don't want somebody like Donald Trump in the White House. And I don't know if Donald Trump would be great for the White House or not. I have no idea, and really, my opinion on it doesn't really matter. Again, I look at it as there's no one man who's going to change everything and make this country the way it should be. We have to do that. Would he be better than Hillary Clinton? I think anybody would be better than Hillary Clinton. Ugh. And that... I thought of Bernie when I said that. I'm not sure, but they're so similar. I'm not even sure. And God forbid whoever Hillary has as a running mate. I don't know how bad that's going to be. I'm hoping with Donald Trump that honestly that he gets a running mate like Colonel Allen West. I mean, that's what he needs. And that's who he needs. And by I say what he needs is somebody who has a background in the military, who's not afraid to take a stand, who knows right from wrong, seemingly, and would help to lead this country. And in the event that something happened to Donald Trump, would be able to step in his shoes and run the country very well. And after 4 years or 8 years of Donald Trump, would run for president himself. I mean, we need somebody that strong. We need somebody who, I don't see Colonel West as being egotistical. I really don't. I see him as somebody who is a stand-up person for this country. I really wish that he had run in this election. I really do. Because I just think that he gets it. He knows the shape that the country is in, and he knows what he needs to do and what needs to be done. And he's not afraid to stand up and talk to those people who try to, put him down or call him names or say, oh, you just don't like Muslims, that's why you feel that way. He's not intimidated by people. He's a guy who has gone out in battle. He's not intimidated by people who, are disgusting people who have an agenda. He's not intimidated by them. And we need that in the White House. We really do. So I don't know who Trump is going to select. I know who he should select. And if he selects somebody like Chris Christie, we're sunk. We really are. We need somebody very strong who's going to go out there. Because I tell you what, too, Hillary's probably going to, it's very likely, in my opinion,
that she's going to select Elizabeth Warren as a VP. And if she does, then you're going to need somebody that can go up against her. Because I'm telling you, she's not afraid to bring out any lie or anything else in order to win. And you need somebody who is going to call her out on that. Donald Trump, we need Allen West. And what do you think about earlier this week when at Liberty University, 1,000 pastors, evangelicals, got together to have a talk with Donald Trump? And I think maybe it took place at Trump Towers, but it was like 1,000 pastors coming together. What do you think about that? I mean, we're always talking about never mixing religion and politics, and mostly that's because of the separation of church and state, which, people get that wrong. It's not, they're doing not what the Constitution calls for, but making it something different because I think it benefits them to do so. But what do you think about 1,000 pastors taking time out to come and talk to Donald Trump? Now, a lot of questions come to my mind immediately. It's, for example, when is the last time we had that many pastors coming together for any presidential candidate in the past? I don't remember any of that ever happening. And why is there a need to do that? Now, frankly, I think the need is because there are many people who, evangelicals especially, who don't trust Donald Trump's motives for doing what he's doing. They also don't trust the fact, they think that he's very divisive. And they're not sure, I think some of them are not sure whether or not he's a Christian, on and on and on. But why are we putting so much time and effort into this one candidate and trying to, what do we hope to accomplish? Is it they're going there to try to convince the American people that don't like Trump, hold your nose and vote anyway because you don't want Hillary Clinton? Or are they going there to see, can we change Donald Trump and make him into the person that we want him to be? Or are they going there to find out if Donald Trump is in fact the person they think he is? It just seems like almost much ado, and I don't know about nothing, but much ado about this. And I look at this in kind of several ways. For the longest time, I have wanted, and you probably feel the same way, I've wanted pastors to get involved. I've wanted pastors to take a stand and to speak out when they should, to lead their people, their congregation, and give them their opinion based upon the Bible, the biblical principles. And I think for the longest time they haven't done that. They've failed us in a lot of respects in that way because they haven't come out. They want to, a lot of them have a feel-good Sunday service, so they hope people come back next week. And we can't offend anybody with the truth, so we just want to have this great Sunday service where everybody's just happy when they're leaving, and they don't feel like they have, any obligation to do anything, or they have no reason to repent. Just go on your way, come back next Sunday, and we'll be fine. I just think that for the longest time, many pastors have failed us. And we're coming to a point where more and more, each and every day in the times that we're in, we see them failing us. We see them turning against biblical principles and going in a way that, again, that just does not follow the biblical principles. And then we have 1,000 who are willing to, come together for this one event. And depending upon who you listen to, there are people who say, well, nothing happened there really. God wasn't even spoken about. And everybody went their merry way. And that's kind of, discouraging. And, if these pastors feel that Donald Trump isn't, Christian enough or whatever the case may be, why weren't they talking to him about that? Why weren't they saying, we have some concerns that you aren't who you say you are? Whatever the case may be. And I don't know, maybe that did happen. And I know that candidates for president are not supposed to be looked at and judged because of their religious beliefs. I mean, that is something that, it's written into our laws, our Constitution, I believe, that, you don't look at a candidate based upon religious affiliation. And I don't know if that's probably not in the Constitution, but it's written someplace. I've seen it. And, so why not just forget about that? Why is it so important that all these pastors then have to come together? And the only thing that you're kind of left with is like, well, these pastors have to come together in order to go back and tell their flock, hey, you need to vote for Donald Trump because if you don't, we're going to lose. We're going to get Hillary. We're going to get somebody worse. I mean, that's the only conclusion, really, that I can come to. And either they're wrong in feeling that way, or the American public is being duped by a Trump campaign. I mean, I take your pick. I don't know what it is, but again, you look at these things, and there's something going on that we haven't done in the past that makes it necessary, or that people feel that it makes it necessary to do it now. When Romney was running, there were a lot of evangelicals that said, I'm not going to vote for Romney because he's Mormon. And as a Christian, I can't vote for a Mormon. And I don't recall, 1,000 pastors getting together at that point and saying, hey, you know what? You're going to have to vote for this guy, hold your nose and vote for him, because we may get Obama and that's going to be worse. They didn't do that. And a lot of Christians just stayed home. So what makes this different? And again, whether you like Donald Trump or not, that's not the point of this and why I'm talking about it. But you have to look at things and see what's happening. And then, again, use your own brain about why is this taking place? What does this all mean? And why are we doing this now and we didn't do it then? So there's a lot of unanswered questions. But it goes back to the fact, for me, it's like that pastors would choose on one hand to get so involved in an election period when they've never done that before, and they're not even involved as much as they should be, in my opinion, in their own church, telling the parishioners, the congregation, about God. Isn't that what you should be doing? Shouldn't you be sitting and telling people about biblical principles instead of running off to Trump Towers or wherever it was to talk to a presidential candidate? It doesn't make sense. And again, if that's something that you feel does make sense, why wasn't it done for Romney? We could have had 8 years of Romney instead of 8 years of Obama. And while, Romney definitely is a disappointment, I think in a lot of respects it at least would have been better in a person whose sole mission, it seems, was to just transform the United States into the country he wanted it to be. So why now? And what is happening, if anything, in your opinion, to our pastors in this country? There's going to be some other event taking place where they're bringing together pastors from different denominations. They're bringing in priests. They're bringing in everybody from different walks of life, if you will, in the religious sector. And they're bringing them together saying, hey, we should all stand together. Do you feel that's good? I think people should stand together where a lot of times whether or not you have the same beliefs, but at the same time, you can't allow it to impact and influence your beliefs to the point that you change your beliefs, assuming that your beliefs are correct or based upon biblical principles, in this case with the pastors. So I'm kind of concerned with them coming together for this event. But again, it could just be one of those events. Let's stand together. We see what's happening in the world, and we need to come together and make sure. I mean, for me, if they're saying we need to come together and make sure that we focus on God, I'm okay with that. That's fine. But if they come together and say, oh, well, maybe we should start doing at our church what you do in, let's say, your, as a Buddhist. I mean, something like that where you're getting off track as a Christian, then I've got real concerns. And I think we've entered this time where there are a lot of deceivers, I'll just call them that, out there. A lot of people who are trying to divide us, to divide our country, to basically, whether you want to believe that Christians are persecuted or not, they don't respect our religious beliefs, those people, those deceivers, and they're not helping us to have a stronger hold as a Christian nation. If anything, we've headed in the opposite direction, and coming back is going to be extremely difficult. And more and more each and every day, it seems that our religious beliefs are just being minimized, and everybody else's are being put before ours. We have a president who has more than once said this country is not really founded on Christian principles. We have our Muslim brothers and sisters that it's founded upon, and which is a total lie. But he said it, and nobody said anything to him. And I see a lot of people coming out now and speaking out about this president, and really just saying the truth about what's going on, about who this man is, about what this man wants to do. And these are people, prominent people who have, power and all that. Where were those people 8 years ago? Why is it taking now at the end of his presidential campaign, or his stay in the White House, whatever you want to call it? Because I think he's been campaigning the whole 8 years, so I can't really call it just a presidency. But why wait till now? Why wait till now when it's almost over, supposedly, and then come out and say all these things? Why weren't you fighting this 8 years ago? Why weren't you coming out and telling the media who they were, that they're state-owned, that they're bought and paid for? Why weren't you speaking up then? And we've got to become those people who will speak out, and who will put everything on the line, I guess, if you will, to try and stop these things from happening. And what I mean by that is, we have a president for 8 years, again, who has completely transformed America, who told the media and still tells the media what they should and shouldn't say, and everybody goes along with it. We have to stop that practice. We have to somehow go and say, no, we're going to have the truth, and we're going to require you to tell the truth. And that's harder and harder to do each day as we sit back and watch our freedoms just go out the window. And a lot of people don't seem to be very concerned. They don't feel that the freedoms are going out the window. They feel that you're making a big deal about nothing. And again, we're a nation that is so caught up in everything else that what we should be focused on at times, that we don't see the forest for the trees. I mean, we're so busy working, we're so busy planning vacations, we're so busy taking the kids to the soccer games, that we don't really stop and look at what's happening in our country. It's almost easier to put your head in the sand and live in denial than it is to see that we have a government that is out of control. We have an AG, who's out of control. We have, name one position that's not out of control. We have Muslim Brotherhood all in the State Department, the White House. I mean, who does that? Who does that? When have we ever done that in America and it's been okay? How do we modify this so we don't have this again? If we get Donald Trump in the White House, is it going to be any different? Or are there going to be, these type of things going on. I mean, the mere fact, one example, Iran, they were negotiating that 2 years before we even knew about it. And yet nobody said anything. And the Congress didn't say anything. They had to know something. And probably, people said, well, we can't talk about it because, it's national security and this is in our best interest and blah, 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 blah. And I'm all for, certain things should be brought out in public because they can harm what you're trying to do or harm other people or, what the case may be. But we have to get to this point where we have to be, this government's right is supposed to be the most transparent government of all time. And you know that couldn't be farther from the truth. Couldn't be farther from the truth. And so how are we going to make the next president accountable to us? Because we haven't done that in 8 years. And again, we have people speaking out now. But let's say Hillary gets in. Are those same people who are speaking in just going to all of a sudden go silent because it's like, oh, can't say that. Hillary's not going to go for that. We have to become those people again that our parents and grandparents were. Those people who didn't sit down, who weren't quiet, who said, we're standing up for what's right, and we're going to do this. And not somebody, we've had this president changing history all the time. Really, he changes and molds history to the way he wants it to be. Pretty soon, if Obama has his way on history, it's going to be that the United States, all we ever did was, put out the white flag because, that's what we're supposed to do is bow down to other nations and other people and just put out the white flag. We don't really defend ourselves. Why should we? Because nobody else is going to hurt us. We're the bad people. We're the Christians who persecuted people and killed people, and nobody else is. Nobody else were murderers like that. So, I could literally see him changing history if he has more time to be anything that he wants it to be. It'll all be a falsehood, but look at kind of what he's done now and going around apologizing for every single thing that ever happened on the face of the planet and making it America's fault. We can't continue to have a president that's going to do that to our country, whether it's Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, or Mickey Mouse. So we have to get back to being those people, that person that will stand up and say, follow me as I lead. If you can't be a leader yourself, then follow me. And as I've always said, we have to be a nation that turns back to God. First and foremost, if you don't do that, none of anything else that I'm talking about is ever going to work. Because I think our parents and grandparents and people before, they had a close tie to God that this nation does not have right now. And unless we get that back, we're going to keep floundering. We're going to keep looking for men or women, individuals, that can lead us. And there's only one leader that we should follow, and that's God. Everybody else are like sub-leaders. That's it. But unless you have that grounded and rooted into your very being, then you're going to be off track. And we are as far off track as I think that we've ever been. And you know it. I know it. And each and every day we get a little bit further off track. So we've got to bring it back around. We've got to be the people that we know that we should be. The people that those that came before us were. The people that sacrificed so that we have what we have today. We need to be those people again. And we need to teach our children to be those people again. And then not children who are left to kind of learn on their own or learn from the government. We can't be those people. It doesn't work. That's why we are where we are right now. We have to continue to stand up, continue to speak out, continue to do the right thing, even in times when it looks like it doesn't make a difference. It makes a difference. It really does. And we need everybody working together. As I said in the very beginning, we need to have that conversation so that we have good people that we're associated with, like-minded people who feel the same way that we do. I thank you so much for being here today. I always appreciate it. I'm so glad that you were here. And I will see you again next week. Until then, God bless you. Take care of yourself.